So I laid out a few things that you can do to counter depression or feelings of depression. And the number one thing is be grateful. And that's why I'm calling this, I call this article, I'm going to call this podcast, Depression versus Gratitude. So I said, be grateful, because Allah says in Surah Ibrahim, the 14th chapter, verse 7, if you are grateful, I will increase you. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful, I will increase you, I will give you more. And the article continues, I say, I am sure you have heard this before, so how can you be grateful in a practical sense? One thing you can do is to write down every night before you go to bed 10 things that you are grateful for that day. So something that works. It's called a gratitude list. Obviously, there are things that you're grateful for every day, such as your faith, your family, your provision, and so forth. But look at the lesser things. Look at the lesser things, quote unquote, that happen to you every day. Did someone show you kindness today? Did someone smile at you? Did a stranger do you a favor? Think about it. Allah says that He is as His slave thinks of Him. Right? There's a hadith, I believe that's in Sahih Bukhari, Imam Bukhari's collection. I think it's from Anas ibn Malik. Ana inna dhanni abdi bi. I am as my slave thinks of him. So every day, good things and bad things happen, quote unquote. And I put these in quotation marks because sometimes something can appear good, but then later on, it actually turns out to be a bad thing, or vice versa. So, for example, therefore, focus on the good things that happen, and inshallah, you will come to see every day as a good day, and Allah will increase you therein because of your gratitude. Also, I say good things and bad things, in quotation marks, because many things turn out to be the opposite. Many things turn out to be the opposite after some time has passed. What you think is bad right now might be seen as something wonderful a few months from now, and vice versa. That's something that we always forget. Something terrible can happen to you, or some sort of change can happen in your life. Schedule gets changed, a timetable gets changed, something moves, something that was unexpected and not desired happens to you, and you're thinking, oh, why did this happen? This is so annoying, and this isn't benefiting me, I don't understand. But then something else happens, maybe 3 months later, maybe 6 months later, and then you think, that's why, that's the benefit, aha. And then you thank Allah, because you were looking at it from your highly limited, low resolution standpoint, and you were assuming that, this is a terrible thing. But Allah is not looking at it from that way. Allah is looking at everything, and in His infinite wisdom and knowledge. And we make that mistake. We should submit to Allah's infinite wisdom and knowledge and His decree. So that's the first thing. Be grateful. Number 2, understand and know that the dunya, i.e. this worldly life, will always frustrate you and disappoint you. Right? You're always going to be frustrated. This isn't the realm of perfect or the realm of perfection. Things will never fall into place just as you want them. For example, your relationships, your career, your finances, etc. And even if they do, it certainly won't last. This sounds negative, but once you understand that this is the nature of the world, and therefore you stop seeking happiness and fulfillment from it, that will bring peace and happiness to your heart. Perfection is for the next life. And it's something I could add to this. And again, I'll mention that book again. I was reading it. I'm reading over the past week, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And it's something that I actually, now that I think about it, it actually is in my book, The Big Step, is that it's not so much about happiness in life. What you really want is meaning. You want meaning in your life. You want to be doing meaningful activities. You want to be bearing responsibility. You want to be changing your own life. You want to be changing other people's life. That's why, for example, teaching is always seen as a meaningful occupation. Being a teacher is not the same as being, a door-to-door salesman, where you feel that, or in some cases, or a lot of cases, you might feel that you're lying to someone, you're putting pressure on someone to get them to buy a product that is not that great. Whereas when you're a teacher, even if you're teaching a language, but if you're teaching something and you can see your students reacting positively, and they're really happy and they're really grateful that they're taking this knowledge from you, and they're saying, I didn't know that before, thank you so much. And then they're going to go out into the world and practice what they've learned from you or implement what they learned from you. That's meaningful. That's meaningful to you. So that's something to add, that really, if you're seeking happiness in this life, that's not really going to happen to you. You'll get it here and there, but what you really want, what true happiness is to have meaning in your life. And meaning comes about through responsibility. And if you want responsibility, Allah's given it to us. And it's in the forms of worship, it's in our prayer, it's in our dhikr, it's in our fasting, and it's also in our families. How we take care of our wives, how we take care of our children, how we take care of our brethren in faith, how we take care of just fellow human beings. Take up responsibility and find meaning in life. That's what we should be doing. The third thing is, do dhikr. And again, I'm sure this sounds familiar, so let's look at it practically. Depression and stress are actually caused, or at least exacerbated, by excessive thinking. Imam Abdurrahman al-Jawzi, may Allah have mercy on him, who is one of the top students of Shaykh al-Islam Al-Qadir Jilani. Imam Ibn al-Jawzi says in his book, Atib al-Ruhani, i.e. spiritual medicine, he has a chapter on how to counteract excessive thinking. And the following two chapters deal with huzn, grief, and ham, anxiety. Grief, or huzn, concerns the past. You're thinking about the past, like, oh, why did that happen? How could that have happened? I wish I could have changed that, and so on and so on and so forth. So this is grief bearing down in your mind. While anxiety concerns the future. What's going to happen? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week? What am I going to do next year? What's going to happen if this happens? What am I going to do if such and such takes place? And we seek refuge in Allah from both in our supplications. Right? There's actually that famous dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min hammi wa huzni. Right? Allah, I seek refuge in you from ham and huzn, from grief and from anxiety. Imam Ibn al-Jawzi points out that thinking about the past should only involve trying to grasp something beneficial from the past, while thinking about the future should be concerning some future benefit. Thinking about anything else will be harmful and exhaust the body. Grief should only be about one's previous sins, so that one does not repeat them, not about worldly things. That's a beautiful piece of advice from the Imam, mashallah. MashaAllah. So to continue the article, I say dhikr means remembrance of Allah, but not in the past or in the future, but now, in the present. To do dhikr properly, you need to clear your mind and thus your heart from excessive harmful thoughts about the past and the future. You need to come into the present moment and fully appreciate it and experience it. Don't see the present moment as simply a means to an end or an obstacle that needs to be overcome. The moment you have right now is the only time you really have. So embrace it, surrender to it, and remember Allah. You can't change the past, so leave it. As for the future, you aren't there yet. So you can't do anything about any future event or situation until it actually becomes the present. And when it does, have faith in Allah. You have to trust in Allah that you will have the resources and wherewithal to deal with it. Put your trust in Allah and have a good opinion of Him. Concentrate on your dhikr, and it will be soothing and healing. And again, what I'm saying here in this verse I quote after that is in Surah Al-Ra'd, ayah 28, those who believe in whose hearts find peace in the remembrance of Allah, only in the remembrance of Allah can the heart find peace. And I think this is the same ayah that Imam al-Bulti quotes in his fatwa about mental illness. Yes, it is the same one. Because one of the things as well that I remember now that Imam al-Bulti talks about is he talks about, he mentions that the field of psychiatry and psychology in the West has failed to treat these mental illnesses. Because they're focusing on the material, physical realm, they're not thinking about the spiritual at all. They haven't managed to conquer these illnesses. And he also talks about this in his book, Minhaj al-Hadara, Minhaj al-Hadara al-Insaniya fi al-Quran, the approach to human civilization in the Quran, which I've translated, alhamdulillah. I do have a blog post about the book. Inshallah, I will do a podcast about it in the future. But he does also mention this point about civilization, how if the Western civilization or American civilization is so advanced and wonderful, why are there so many psychiatric clinics? Why are so many people suffering from depression? Why are so many people suffering from mental anxiety? And he's not making this stuff up, because if you go back to these articles I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, in New York Times or in The Independent or Time Magazine, if you just type in depression statistics over the past 50 years, you just type that into a search engine, all these articles pop up. Like, why is this happening? So, the Imam, or not the Imam, it's just me and my article. So I said here, after quoting the ayah, I said, stress is often made worse when you are forced to wait for something. For example, while stuck in a traffic jam or standing in a queue, right? So for American listeners, that means line, standing in a line. And these are things that happen to us every day. You get stuck in traffic, when you line up somewhere, you line up at the supermarket, you line up at the gas station, whatever it is, you get stuck in a queue. You get angry. In these situations, you get angry, you get frustrated, but there's nothing you can do about that situation. Why not just accept it? Instead of having resisting the situation, why not submit to it? Submit, accept it, and use that time to do dhikr. Astaghfirullah, 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 or whatever it is. Send salawat on the Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Everyone has situations like this every day. So take advantage of them and use them to draw closer to Allah instead of resisting them. Resisting will only make you more stressed and more frustrated, and thus you will suffer. So if you go into this state of resistance and start saying to yourself, this shouldn't be happening, this shouldn't be happening, why is this happening to me? Right? And you can make it really personal and really make yourself feel like a victim. Like, why is this happening to me? Why is this being done to me? Why is it always me? You're just making yourself suffer more. You're just compounding your suffering. There's no wisdom behind this whatsoever. Resisting will only make you more stressed and more frustrated, and thus you will suffer. Surrender to the moment and connect with your Lord, and He will bring peace and ease to your heart. Allah says in Surah Al-Hadid, the 57th chapter, verse 16, has not the time arrived for the hearts of those who believe to yield to the remembrance of Allah? It's a beautiful ayah. Yield to the remembrance of Allah. Give in, submit to the remembrance of Allah. Don't be in this state of resistance. Like, why is this happening? Why is this taking so long? No, turn that situation on its head and use it as a moment to just embrace Allah. Embrace His remembrance. And then the fourth thing, which is, I said last but not least, be careful with your quote-unquote consumption of news, especially TV news. Mainstream news is by and large sensationalist, right? It's meant to excite you, so that you keep watching all the way through to the commercial break. Now, that's the whole idea. It's just feeding you. It's like the equivalent of what we now have on the internet, like clickbait. It's just trying to keep you glued to the TV so that you're thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And that you stay for the commercial break. And that's why they use these phrases like, we'll be right back after the commercial break. Don't go away. Because they're trying to keep you there. Because who's funding them? Advertisers. And then after that, I said, news broadcasters and newspaper publishers have to play with your emotions and trick you into thinking that what they're telling you is really important and will have some drastic impact on your life. This obviously has the potential to cause undue stress and even depression. For further details, please see the book How to Watch TV News by Neil Postman and Steve Powers. And with Allah alone is every success.